Again, my name is Dave Bones. It is my pleasure to be with you here today. We've been talking about stories, and I would like you to just picture a story in your mind about the best club meeting that you've ever had in your present club. And think to yourself, what is it that brought you to Toastmasters and why do you stay there? As you think about the best meeting you've ever had, I hope that feelings of positive associations come up. And if you're like me, three things that you look for are connecting with people, learning, and having fun. The good news is, as the VPE Basecamp manager, we can drive the education part of it. And it's my job here to inspire you and inform you how exactly that could take place. So thank you so much for your contribution. It's going to be a pleasure sharing this information with you. This is part of the District 7 Toastmasters Club Officer Makeup Training Series, which takes place June through August 2021. This is an elective, so this is not for club officer makeup training credit. However, I do give you personal credit for being here, wanting to learn, wanting to share. We're going to be covering that specific role, Vice President Education, as a Basecamp manager, utilizing FreeToastHost in this training. The title of this presentation is VPE Basecamp Manager Contribute with Confidence. This is what I hope to have an experience with you today. Who specifically is this elective training session for? Certainly newer Vice President Education Club officers and experienced VPEs wanting Basecamp Manager and FreeToastHost training. The material we're going to cover specifically is about techniques and strategy to further manage club education using and integrating Basecamp and FreeToastHost tools. Manage in this case means submitting awards, tracking progress, and helping members with pathways. First thing we need to do at the basic level or at the advanced level in this role at VPE Basecamp Manager is to log into Basecamp as a Basecamp manager. And I just want to say the way that I'm differentiating between basic level and advanced level is in the amount or lack of verification. I have run into newer VPEs that really felt almost inadequate, I guess you might say, in what they needed to do with some of these basic tasks. And part of it, maybe the most complex part, was sort of verifying where are these members at, what's their education level, how do I verify what they've done. So what I've tried to do here is give that new VPE at the basic level a way to do the duties that they have agreed to help with in their club without needing to have a lot of technical knowledge. So we log in. We're going to start right from the beginning because this is being recorded for posterity. I don't want to leave anybody behind in this presentation. So we go to toastmasters.org. We click log in. Then that'll bring us to our member ID or email. We would type in our password and then the login button. We click on pathways because we are going to be logging in regarding pathways, Basecamp, and Basecamp manager role information. So we then go to Basecamp. We clicked on that. And then we click on login as Basecamp manager. As Basecamp managers, you can log in as a member, which is the top button, which just simply says go to Basecamp. Or the one we're going to be using is log in as a Basecamp manager. First thing we need to deal with are Basecamp pending requests. And one that you may not know about is actually called external training. That is exactly what I'm doing today. I'm not in my club, but I'm giving a presentation at a different location, but I still would like to have Toastmasters credit. And it is at the discretion of the vice president of education in my club to approve that and say, yeah, that sounds like we could give you credit for that presentation. It's in line with our curriculum. We're going to discuss that as well as how to approve it. So we say, yeah, it's good. Why don't you go do it? Come back to me, and then we approve it. So again, we log in as Basecamp Manager. Once we do that, we come to the Basecamp Manager home screen, and that's what this looks like. You'll see these three buttons. You'll see the circled one, which is called Pending Requests. There are two others there. Member Progress. I don't recommend, especially for the newer VPE, clicking on that. Some people like it, and you're certainly welcome to, but I've found it to be rather technical, and even as long as I've been doing this now, I don't use that at all. I'm going to be giving you other techniques and strategies that might be a little bit more simple and clear. Manager tutorials. I hate to say it, but I don't always recommend that. This is Dave Bone speaking. This is not Toastmasters International. But I've found that members go there, and if they don't really know how to navigate within the Basecamp navigation, basically, they don't know how to get around. It's hard for them to get back. So I would recommend stick with pending requests if you want to keep it a little bit simpler. Click on that. You'll see, of course, view pending requests as indicated. You'll know you're in the right place. It just so happens that at the time that I created the screenshot, I submitted this particular external training, and it's a little bit small in the lettering, but it says D7 TLI Club Secretary Training on June 5th of this year. Now, I gave that presentation. I did not attend it. So if I attended it, it would not be in my Basecamp at all. But since I gave the presentation as an external training, that's why this is relevant to what we're doing. And you might notice right next to it, it says the type and its initial. That means, is this a valid presentation to give credit for? And then on the far right, you can either approve with the green check mark or deny with the red X. And if you want to see a little bit more details on that, you would click on the D7 TLI Club Secretary Training. And this is what it looks like. It just shows you the description, the path that I'm associating that with, the project, and other details that you might be interested in. At this point, I've chosen to approve this project as an external training. And I just put in there, I'm approving your initial request for the external training, D7 TLI Club Secretary Training on 6/5/21. I look forward to hearing back after your presentation for me to approve the final completion in Basecamp. Keep up the great work. One parenthetical I might add here from the last webinar, someone mentioned, it's important with 3 Basecamp managers, and I don't know if this is a review or not, but I'm just going to mention it. There are 3 Basecamp managers in every club. There's you as the VPE, who's the main Basecamp manager, but you have 2 team members that also have the same access, which would be the club president and club secretary. Now, in my club, I tend to do all the work, so it's a bit of a non-issue, but I'm going to probably start doing that as a habit anyway, which is to sign it and date it. So after keep up the great work, I would simply sign it Dave Bones, VPE, and then the date. Then once you do that, you'll see it is not in that screen anymore. It means that we've processed it as needed for the moment. Now let's just say Dave Bones has done that secretary training on 6/5/21, and he now wants to complete it. So he's been approved, he's done it. Now he's asking the VPE Basecamp manager to complete it. Same procedures in place. We have a choice to approve or deny. It's been chosen to approve it. And then same deal. I just, to be clear, put in there, I'm approving your completion request for giving that particular presentation. Congratulations. And again, parenthetically, I would say Dave Bones, VPE on that day. That way they know which of the 3 Basecamp managers it was. Now, this one is perhaps the most important, which is level completion approvals. This might be a review, but please share this with others. I guarantee you probably know some Toastmasters that are not totally clear on this process. So here we are back at the same pending request screen, but now it's for a level 4 completion, strategic relationships. You'll see that in the center on the left is my name, Dave Bones, and of course our familiar green check mark button for the approval or red X for deny. And of course, we give the approval at this time at the basic level without verifying per se. Although one thing I would say, even at this basic level, do take it to a logical process. In other words, if on day one they've completed no projects and on day two they've completed their entire path, it probably means that they've gone into their base camp and just been looking around and clicked they accidentally completed everything. So in that case, use common sense is my suggestion. Say, it looks like, you are wanting to submit these, but we actually haven't done these. So once you do them, we will, of course, process them and we can work through that as necessary. Pending request notifications. You might be saying, well, how do I even get these? Do they just know because I'm the VPE? Unfortunately, no. There is a situation, and it's just the way that it works. It's good to be aware of. The club email contact person in Club Central will receive the pending requests. If you are not listed in that email contact within Club Central, within Toastmasters.org, you will not receive those pending requests. So be sure that you are somehow associated with that. Now, here's the other thing that people do forget. The level award submission also needs to be done in Club Central. So let's just say we've done that, we've approved it in Basecamp, but we also need to submit the award in Club Central. If not, you or the member will not receive credit with Toastmasters International, and your club will not receive credit in the Distinguished Club Program. So it's very important, and this happens all the time. I helped a club recently that had done amazing education work all year long, and when I looked at their Distinguished Club Program report, they had 0 education awards completed. And that's what we figured out is they had been doing everything they needed to do at Basecamp, but did not do it in Club Central. So please keep in mind any VPEs that you talk with, or if this is you, make sure to process that award both in Basecamp as well as in Club Central. I'm going to show you how to do this very briefly because, again, this is for the beginners right now. We log into the Toastmasters International website, go to Club Central, submit education awards. So here we are logging in again. Logging in the same way, member ID, password, login. There are a couple of ways to get to your Club Central. I like to encourage this particular way, going through Leadership Central. There are other ways. I'm not going to get into that right now, but I like to encourage members just to get familiar with Leadership Central. So this is the way that I'm going to do it, but if you have your preferred method, by all means, please continue with that. Once you click on Leadership Central on the far left, you'll see Club Central. And when you get to Club Central, the first section is called Club Membership. Second one down is Submit Education Awards. So you would click on that. Now, because this is being posted, it's public and all that, I've scrubbed names, but I think you'll still get the idea. So once you've clicked on Submit Education Awards, you would select the member as indicated. Once you've done that, it'll give you the option to select the education program that you are wanting to refer to. And again, that is scrubbed, but what you would have seen and are seeing, it's just blank, is the member being at the top, just below it, the education program specifically, and review the award submission is the option we're going to now click on at the bottom right. And then looking at the member ID, their name, and their path information, you can either edit if there's something there that doesn't look quite right, or if you're happy, you click on Submit Award. And lo and behold, you are now successful. That person will get credit with Toastmasters International. Your club will get credit with the Distinguished Club Program. This has come up in our conversation before the webinar today, which is the Pathways Mentor Program. Now, again, we are at the basic level, so we're not going to be talking about a lot of verification, but this needs to be approved in Basecamp. It's very similar to a level completion. So we approve it first in Basecamp once the member has completed their curriculum and asked for approval. And just like a level completion, they also need to have the award submitted in Club Central to get credit. Now, as a parenthetical, just for your own information, especially for those a little bit more advanced, and this might be a review, is it's pretty straight ahead what is needed to complete the Pathways Mentor program within Basecamp. It's simply a matter of doing these things, checking it off as you go along. I've talked with Toastmasters International about this next aspect, which is the award submission in Club Central for a Pathways Mentor designation. And they fully admit it's not completely clear yet, but technically we're not supposed to submit that award until we have verified not only that they've completed the Pathways Mentor program in Basecamp, but as well they need to have completed a full path and have been in good standing for 6 months as a member. Dues have been paid during that time. With those three criteria met, that would be the time to then process the award submission. Good to know about. As a newer VPE, just do your best to communicate. But in my opinion, just do what you have to do. You know, we want you to feel confident and know that you can take these actions and not be fearful. Use common sense. It's going to be fine. You might double check that if you forget this and you submit the award. You know, you're on the right track, in my opinion. That's just Dave Bones. As mentioned, it is very similar to a level approval and submission, meaning level approval in Basecamp, submit the award in Club Central. Another aspect that has really plagued some newer VPEs is they want to just look at their current members and know what their education status is, their education award status. My goodness, there was this one person that I was helping that tried to go to the member progress tab in the Basecamp home screen, and what a mess it was. Yeah, it was way too complex for what this person was wanting to do. In my opinion, the simplest way to do this, we're going to show you how to do it, is the club roster, and Club Central lists the person's, every member's name and their education award status. As we mentioned, it shows your club's member list, does display that current education award status. We're going to show you how to do this. So you might remember we just showed you how to get to Club Central. Once you're there, just to the right of Submit Education Awards, you can click on Club Roster. I have scrubbed everybody except for me for the sake of this webinar, but for illustration, you'll see my name there, Dave Bones. My education award status is listed as DTM. And then there's other information about how long my dues are paid up to, other things like that. But what we're talking about right now is just the name and the education award status. And this is how you can see your full listing of all your members and their education award status information. Now we're going to take that big leap into the advanced level. We're going to do this through a case study. So we're back to Basecamp pending requests. And I just really want to reiterate, as it indicates at the bottom of the slide so far, which is verification through member tracking. That was promised in the advertisement for this. This is what we're going to discuss now. And I think this can, as much as you can drive your club's education and management at the basic level, at this level, you can really, in my opinion, make a very positive impact. So we do this first as Basecamp manager. we're going to do a member search. Again, we're going to show you how to do this. And we're going to use paths in learning. What you're going to notice is if you are a newer member, Vice President Education, but now maybe stepping into that advanced level, the aspect that I'm going to share with you is that paths in learning works the same way as it does for you as a member. So whatever knowledge you already have immediately applies as a Basecamp manager. And we're going to illustrate that here shortly. So we log in as Basecamp manager, pending requests. And there's Dave Bones. He still wants his level 4 completion. So as we've been discussing, but now we're going to put some verification to this. Let's just make sure that we're clear on what his requirements are for that level 4 completion and strategic relationships. And let's see what specific speeches and dates with that information has taken place. So in that same screen that we're just looking at, the Basecamp Manager home screen, we look to the upper right and there's a search section. We start typing in there just the word club. Now you could start typing that member's name. Definitely, I've done that a million times. But if you want to see your entire club, just see who's on the team, so to speak, this is the way to do it. Follow the same logic if you just want to use your member's name. But in this case, we're using club, and then we would click below, sort of that autocomplete section, Club Basecamp Manager. This will open up just to the bottom right of that, which is called View Team. And you will see your entire club that is Pathways enrolled. Now, I only included myself for the sake of privacy of my other members, but in this case, we're wanting to verify my information about strategic relationships level 4. So we click on Dave Bones. As mentioned, you have a few options here, and we want to click on Paths in Learning. And you can also verify just off to the left there, it does say my name. So it's not Paths in Learning in general, but it's Paths in Learning for Dave Bones. And then you'll see the path in question is there, just like if you were a member logging in about to work within your path. You would click on Open Curriculum, and this is what it looks like. It's really two sections. To the far left, you sort of see the big picture, strategic relationships. You can see I've completed level 1, 2, and 3, indicated by the check mark next to each one. And there is no check mark next to level 4 because, in fact, that's what I'm reviewing right now for approval. The other thing you'll notice to the right, which is a little bit more the detail menu, if you will, next to level 1, 2, and 3, it says 100%. So that means, okay, well, those are complete. And then level 4, you'll notice it's not 100%. It says 67%. I'm not sure how useful that particular number is, but it's useful in the fact that it's showing us that it's not completely done yet. And basically, I'll just, spoiler alert, we're the holdup right now. We have to complete that last step, which is to approve it. Once we get further into that menu of level 4, you'll see at the top there are sort of 3 boxes there to be aware of, going from right to left. Total items 3 that need to be addressed, minimum required 3, and then on the far left, completed 2. So, okay, let's see what that means. So if we look below, my required project for that level was public relations strategies. There's a check mark, so okay, that's done. Elective projects, let's see what that means. Minimum required, which is the middle metric there, 1. Completed 1. Oh yes, and there's that 100%. So it tells us that's done. So what's the holdup? Why are we at 67%? And the reason is, if you look in that big circle at the bottom, pending completion approval. That's the status. Again, we are the holdup right now in a good way because we're verifying at this advanced level. And we're like, okay, all right, good. We're halfway there. We can now see what the requirements are. We can see where they're at. But we want to actually see what dates, what speeches were given. So we're going to do that through FreeToastHost. And I don't know if this is a review or not, but don't know that I've actually met a club that really takes this incredibly serious, and it is such an amazing tool. So I hope you're either doing it or might consider doing this. What is FreeToastHost? Let's make sure everybody knows. And as a matter of fact, I was on a Pathways forum on Facebook, and someone asked that, what is FreeToastHost? Glad you asked. They provide complimentary hosting and websites for Toastmasters clubs around the world. In this case, we're talking about your club's website. It's the same for all Toastmasters Club if you're using their hosting service, which makes it much easier to discuss training and options for what you're looking to do as a club. We're going to show you some real basics, and it's really targeted what we're trying to do with this free toast host. What I'm hearing from some people is it might be good to just do a free toast host training by itself. So forget about your role. I would be remiss if I didn't at least do this topic. Out of all the clubs that I help 7 days a week, day and night, up all night, many nights, this role of VPE, Basecamp Manager, was the big one. And it's the one that's never been done because there's only one in a club. So are you going to take the time and do a webinar? It's just hasn't been done. I've looked on the World Wide Web. It's just not clear in one place. That's the mission of this webinar with you here today. So I thank you for your interest and contribution. We're going to show you how to use the meeting agendas in this particular context. Please note that the default setting for a FreeToastHost Club website is that it allows VPE access. So you won't probably have to do anything to make sure that you can access the agendas. What's very important is for this to even be valid at all, every week we might really consider reconciling roles and speeches for every meeting. That way we can depend on the data, which I'm about to show you this method. And then once we're happy with the data, then we can click on reports. We're going to now conduct a member speech report to verify that specific information. We're going to do that through, at times, if you need to. For example, level 3, there are certain member roles that they will need to complete, whether it be Toastmaster, Topics Master, Speech Evaluator. That is something to be aware of. Ask me about that in the Q&A if you're not sure, but that would be how you could use the member role report. So you're at your FreeToastHost Club website. This is the member login button. Then you would start typing your name, and you'll know that you are a member of the website because your autocomplete will start to come up. So for example, when I typed in Dave, my full name and a couple of education award things going on came up. So it's like, okay, well, good, I'm there. So then I would select that, and then I would type in my password and click on authenticate or log in. Because we're targeted with this very specific verification process, we're now going to go to meeting agendas. Once we're there, 3 things I would like to just really bring to our attention is it's going to bring you to whatever the current agenda is, the current coming agenda, but I want you to know that you can click on view another agenda with the down arrow, and if it's been a longer duration where this person has done a speech and you need to reconcile a meeting, whatever, you can click on list all agendas, and that will literally give you all the agenda information back to the first day that you did your first agenda with FreeToastHost. So that could be years, and it's there as long as nothing has been purged. And then on the far right, the edit. This is extremely necessary if you are going to reconcile, which we're about to get into. And that pencil is, of course, what indicates that you're going to be editing. Once you go to that edit screen, the 2 items we're concerned with are the agenda items and then the attendance. Those are 2 things that I reconcile every meeting. Then in the bottom left, once you're happy that everybody that did attend and they did that particular role, then you would be clicking on reconcile. And when you go through your agenda listings, you'll see a check mark to show, in fact, that you can depend on that data. I can't stress enough the reconcile procedure will really help in this case. And if it's not done, it can be a little hard to depend on the data. So once you are happy with the data, that icon there indicates the reports. So you click on that. We're talking about speeches in this case, not the member roles, because it is level 4. The only level completion that we would be concerned with member roles would be level 3. So in this case, we're going to click on member speech report as opposed to role report. And you could do a report for your whole club, but in this case, since we're just trying to verify Dave Bones, I indicated Dave Bones, and then you would run and download. And what it shows is, again, I've scrubbed a little bit just because of the public nature, but it gives my name on the left, the date, the title of my speech, the project information. Those are the ones in particular that we need to be aware of to actually verify. And why do I say this? I'd say 25 to 50% of the time when people submit awards, they've made a mistake. And, this is how we learn, right? We say it's a safe place to fail is what I see Toastmasters as. So a lot of mistakes are made, and you can help and you can learn. And then in the upper right, it shows the report date, the date selection. In this case, I did the current Toastmasters year, and then the member selection for myself. The other thing you can do, in addition to all of this, which I at least give the member an option, is to tell me about their speech information that would be associated with this particular award that they would like to get. That can be helpful. It is information like the dates, the speech titles, and the pathways project information that we need to know about. Now, they may be willing to do that, or they may have time to do that, or they may not. The good news is you have access to all that information regardless, but I think it actually can be very beneficial for them to know the criteria, beyond just checking these things off in Basecamp as they go along. Now we have verified, and we can now finally go through the level completion approval. So here we are, we're looking at that same member, Dave Bones, level 4 completion, strategic relationships, and we're going to now finally click the green check mark. Please remember that this also needs to be done in Club Central once it is verified in this advanced level. You do this again by logging into the TI website, going to Club Central, submit education awards. As indicated previously, repetition is the mother of education. You go to toastmasters.org, click on login, type in member email, password, login button. Go to Leadership Central, as we did before, Club Central on the far left, submit education awards, select the member, the education program, review award submission, submit award, and hey, let's give Dave Bones a hand. He's now got that award after all of that verification. As a VPE Basecamp manager, I'm going to offer 2 PDFs. Now, this is something that I'm offering you. When I think about VPE Basecamp manager, it's a big picture role. It's a manager role. So these 2 PDFs are involved in the big picture. I don't recommend sharing this with a new member. It's too much information, in my opinion, except in maybe a specialized circumstance, of course. But the other thing that I want to tell you is specifically what are the names. So the Pathways, Paths and Projects Catalog PDF is the first one. Secondly, visual explanation of pathways. This is the Pathways, Paths and Projects catalog. It's got all 11 paths. Now you might be looking at the big icons, it looks like 10, but if you look to the bottom right, it's in small lettering, it says link to the new path, engaging humor. So when this was made, it was a new one. Now it's been around for a little while. That includes all 11 paths. And this is an interactive PDF. It will display all of the paths as you're seeing, but also the projects. Simply by clicking on that path, it will bring you to all of the projects. So in this case, maybe we want to know about strategic relationships. So we click on that. And let's say someone is doing the icebreaker. I just want to know about that. So I would click on icebreaker. And this is with this interactive PDF. This will be included in the downloads that our gracious host will be posting at the end of this presentation. Both of these documents and some other things will be in there. We've clicked on the icebreaker, and this is the project description. Now you could get the same information by logging into Basecamp and doing it that way, but this is sort of a one-stop shopping. It's all in the PDF. Here's the other one. This is the visual explanation of pathways. The PDF itself is 6 pages, and it takes you literally from level 1 through DTM. I don't know about you, but when I first started trying to study what was necessary to get a DTM, whether it be in the previous curriculum or in the current curriculum pathways, it sure seemed like a lot of information. And I love the fact that it's just big picture. It's just a flow chart. You just walk down the flow chart. So it starts with selecting and activating your learning path for level 1, right? But this includes all of your levels, including through DTM. But this is the first one of the pages. Level 1 includes 5 presentations. Starts off with 1 presentation in the icebreaker, but the big mistake that I noticed with a lot of level 1 submissions is they don't realize that you actually have 3 presentations that are different from the icebreaker. They're not the same thing. So you have to give a presentation, receive feedback on that. The second time you give another speech, apply that feedback. And the third one is you give your own evaluation. And then the 5th presentation in level 1 is researching and presenting. Some might say it's the level that never ends, but tell your members, encourage your members, stick with it. You'll be done with it before you know it. Now you might say, okay, well, we've talked about sort of giving me some information. What teaching method can I share to help my members with Pathways in Basecamp? How can I not, overload them or anything like that? I think first and foremost myself, now you may already have successful methods. I would say keep using those, and I'm just going to share what has also worked for me. I like to prioritize clarity. My principles, I come from a way of looking at things that's called 80-20. Some of you might have heard of that. In this case, what that means is that I think 20% of the material in Pathways in Basecamp provides 80% of the value, especially for that newer member. So I share that and nothing else. The main obstacles I've found with members can be overload, which is just too much information, or confusion, which is they have certain information, but it's all disjunct, it's all disorganized. So when we give this 80-20 approach, it can really help with both of those. The other aspect is adult learners, we want autonomy. We don't necessarily want to always have to go back to someone else. We want to know that we can, but as well, when we give them the overview of whatever topic we're describing, just give them the big picture, a little bit of a given topic that they want to know about, and then give them checklists. Do this step 1, 2, and 3. That can be a way to help them with that. The overview, for example, at the end of this, you'll see a recap. That's my attempt at an overview, and checklists. We'll be talking about ways to get some of these things done, and have been. The other thing you'll probably run up against is resistance, where they have a problem with Pathways or Basecamp. They're emotionally charged about it. One thing that can be helpful, I think, to bring it in that positive space is to have 10 Pathways benefits ready to discuss from your personal experience. The way that this really came to mind was I had a member say to me, Dave, I think that Pathways is just a checklist. And I was like, whoa, I hadn't even thought about that perspective. That's so interesting that you would think of it that way. But I just thought to myself, wow, I didn't even know anything about PowerPoint and never used PowerPoint for the most part before teaching Pathways, being involved in Pathways. My communication with so many different types of people, understanding your leadership style, communication style, these are all paths that have benefited me greatly. And I have them right at top of mind to hopefully share my information as well as inspiring information, maybe for them if it sounds interesting. Please be patient with these people. It's most likely going to take time over weeks, months, even years. I have people that I've been talking with for a while that who knows which way it's going to go, but we try to stay in communication, and I have hope that maybe there'll be some common ground for them with Pathways and what they're trying to do. They clearly love Toastmasters. They're in Toastmasters. They love their clubs. In practice, how can you help them? I think one-on-one tutoring is probably the highest chance of success. That is number one. Set up a Zoom session, say, let's set up screen share. Why don't you drive, Mr. Member, Mrs. Member, and I'll coach you along. That really seems to help. Please know you don't have to have all the answers. Know who to ask for help. For example, that could be for you as a Vice President Education or Basecamp Manager, or if you want to refer someone directly to that member on a given topic. For example, I'm very available. My contact information is going to be available at the end in this chat. If we could, from our person helping, our host, of course. And you probably know others, but just know that help is available for both of those aspects. I do have a YouTube channel, which I'm briefly going to talk about as a video resource for those that like that. I have a playlist. It's called Toastmasters Pathways Fundamentals. The first video is just called Toastmasters Pathways Fundamentals with timestamps for topics, 101 basics. The curriculum, what is it that Dave Bones decided to put in the curriculum in this 80-20 principle kind of way? 4 things. The first one is logging into Basecamp. Second is completing a project, which starts with the icebreaker. Evaluation forms, where to find them, what to do with them. And then finally, how to get around in Pathways Basecamp navigation. So let's say you went to YouTube, you would find my playlist there on the left. It says Toastmasters Pathways Fundamentals. And the top one, and please note that it does say timestamps. What are those? Those blue numbers that are sort of have the square around them. That means that you can click on that, and then for the duration between that timestamp and the next one, you will be able to isolate that specific topic. So the way that I set it up, anywhere between 15 seconds and several minutes, you can pick a topic and learn about it rather than have to watch the entire video. To recap, we've differentiated between the basic level and the advanced. At the basic level, we are going to be able to do pin and requests. Process awards, please note that they need to be done in Basecamp and Club Central. We can now access the club roster, which gives all of their education award status information. At the advanced level, we're now going to verify and track as members need. And believe me, these members will come to you, where am I at again? What have I done? They want answers. And if you can help them with that, it can be really beneficial. You do that through Basecamp, the Paths in Learning, and the FreeToastHost Club website using the agendas and reports. How do you help your members with Pathways in Basecamp? We've shown you the big picture PDFs for you as the manager, not for the members. Talked about the teaching method priorities for members. Clarity, at least is my thing that I try to go for, the 80-20 fundamentals. Try to provide autonomy through overview like we're doing now, checklists. Dealing with resistance, another thing I'll quickly put out there is consider offering empathy instead of correcting. I have heard situations where someone has sort of a complaint or an issue going on, and then they'll say, oh, well, let me tell you why you're wrong. And that doesn't always work too well. So you might consider just trying to meet them where they're at. Offer that empathy could be another solution. We've talked about the video resource, my YouTube channel, the specific playlist. Thank you for your leadership in Toastmasters and for attending. And I certainly look forward to further discussion and question and answer. Back to you, Mr. Host. I think Ellen has her hand up too, in case you'd like to
she does. Well, Ellen.
Okay, so here's my question. A member wants to do a level 4 or 5 project, which is work related, which I encourage. Take it out into the real world. How much do they really have to upload for a project outside of the club.
Ah, very good. Now, do you have a specific project, or would you like me to just sort of come up with an example?
Well, for instance, they just got promoted to the overall state PR person for their business. And as bring and modernize their PR efforts, I told them, well, why not make that your HPLP? Haha.
Yes.
You know, two birds with one bloody stone, let me tell you.
Yes.
So how much the reality and the technically, in theory, they upload a whole bunch of things into their pathways so that I can, quote, verify, unquote, that they're doing the work.
Good
What
question.
is the reality?
Yes, exactly. Between reality and practice. Yes. The, or I should say, theory and practice. A lot of that is going to be up to club discretion. I will say, if you want to take the simple approach, or that's what I often do, is I see Toastmasters largely on the honor system, and I certainly hope that my club members and I have that relationship with integrity. So I will tend to look at the requirements within the project itself. In other words, if it says, in this case, maybe it's promote a PR campaign, and you are doing that through work, you would put that together. Now with HPL, it does require guidance committee meetings and that sort of thing. So I would probably want documentation of those dates, certainly. That is, and it's required in their forms and given to them as a resource. As a matter of fact, it's an excellent project. I love that project, HPL. Learned so much myself when I did it. And in the end, a speech will need to be given to an audience that includes at least one Toastmaster so that they can receive an evaluation. So again, to sort of recap this thing, you may want to differentiate between what they do at work and the value that they're providing for their own education. But after all, it's for them. Just my view, everybody can have their own way of looking at it. But where I'm going to want to know more information is, did they give a presentation that was actually evaluated by a fellow Toastmaster? I think this is a wider topic, but does that answer your question, or do you have further follow-up on that, Ellen?
What I did was I had told them, you have to do the beginning speech of your HPLP. This is what I'm planning to do. You set up your guidance committee. I need to know all the dates of your meetings. And then at the end, your guidance committee signs off on the bloody form. Please send me the bloody form. And then you must do your speech in the club. I didn't want to require them to upload all of their businesses. I am the new state director of PR, and so here is the staff I manage. Here are our meetings. Here is what's going to be. I didn't want any of that.
Yes. Yep. It sounds like you and I are on the same page with that. I totally think that is correct. And let's face it, we want to incentivize people to do these, because if it looks like it's so much to do and you can never get it done, they're like, well, I just won't do any Pathways projects. And I've learned that one the hard way, because I've been a stickler in the past, and it's like, wow, nobody's doing anything anymore. Dave, lighten up. so it sounds like we're coming to similar conclusions.
Yeah, because if you look at the Basecamp manager and all of that, they're supposed to do it. And I really don't want to go through that hell. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you did the right thing with that. Focus on the Toastmasters aspect. Let them be responsible for their own growth at work and that sort of thing. Thank you. Next question. I thought I saw another hand up. I know.
This is
Oh,
Dahlia.
Dahlia, yes, please. Oh, and I should defer to David. David, shall we call upon Dahlia?
We should indeed.
I have members who sometimes they will record that they're giving a speech, and they'll provide a speech title, but what they don't do is to select the path that they're on or the project. They'll tell in the speech introduction what project and path they're on, but not put it in the description of the speaker. How does that affect the search for the report? How does that work? Because I've never done that before. The part in FreeToastHost where you run the report, I've never done that. And I was like, see, I learned something new. So my thing is, if I'm trying to verify that someone gave a speech, I know I'm pretty much at most meetings, but it's not going to be recorded, that part. It would make sure that they gave a speech, but what level, what path, maybe.
Yes. So let me give you a center of the page answer, and then we can go beyond the center of the page. Ideally, for example, now it sounds like you're talking about someone that has given a presentation at your meeting, not at a different club. Is that correct?
No, at my meeting. At my meeting, and I only noticed it after the fact that they've input the title, they added their bio and the introduction to the speech. But when you go up to where you would have selected your path and then the project, you're given the speech on for your evaluation form to pop up, that was not completed.
Understood. Okay. Yes. So ultimately, for them to get credit, they will need to choose their path and which project they would like to get credit upon. That is something that they will need to do at some point for them to actually get the credit. That way it gets, like, for example, you noticed in my situation, I wanted to get level 4 level completion and submission, but without knowing the project information or what path, there's no way to connect the dots so that I could get my education award. So a person that doesn't pick their path or project information is probably learning, they're getting experience, but they will not be taking place in helping your club's distinguished club program or their own education award status. So in that case, I mean, for example, my speech today, I was a bit busy, and David was wonderful and said, I will evaluate your speech. So he knows what project I'm doing. And I'll tell you right now, David, it's team collaboration is my path, just so you know. And this is my 5th path. So I basically completed 4 at this point. But does that make sense? So at some point, whether it be ideally prior to the presentation, but even afterwards, so we're going beyond the center of the page a little bit, I would encourage them to decide what path do they want to associate this with and which specific project do they want to get credit for. And hopefully it does line up with the objectives. It really should. For example, there's a level 3 elective called negotiating an outcome or something like that. So naturally the topic should involve negotiation of some kind. You don't want to pick the negotiation and then all of a sudden we're giving a pathways presentation with no relation to negotiation. Does that make sense, or do you have follow-up on that, Delia?
Yes, it makes sense. I was thinking as you explained how to impress more on our members to fill in their profile, because even sometimes they're coming from work, they don't have time. And when I did the VPE role, I would get on and input. They would provide information for me and I would input it because I knew that I needed that information, but it doesn't happen all the time. And
yes,
so
now the beauty of FreeToastHost, do you guys use FreeToastHost?
yeah, this is what we use. But in Pathways, they initiated a project, launched it, and you can see where they go back and do their before and after assessment. They do all that is done. It's just to verify now, because I've never verified in FreeToastHost.
Oh, okay, all right. So at this point, so they have done it.
They did the project. It's in FreeToastHost that I'm trying to run that report. I'm trying to see how that report how to sell them on that. Hey, you need to input your information in your speaker profile so that we can later on, no matter who is there, can say, yes, you gave that speech by going to verify that you did perform that speech on that date.
I see. Okay.
Because that report you referred to in FreeToastHost.
You are in a better position than I thought you were in. Okay, that's good. So now what I do as a VPE, because I don't have a lot of members that log in and do this themselves. So I will have a dialogue, and that dialogue will be complete, prior to the presentation. Not always, but so at this point they know it, but they haven't told you. So what you could do is get that bird's eye view, log in as Basecamp manager, go to Paths in Learning, look at their information, where are they at, what are they doing. At some point, I would have that email dialogue or phone dialogue, whatever that is. What is your speech title? We already know the date because it's the coming meeting. And they know this information. If they have opened the project, they've been working on it. So if it's their icebreaker and they're doing strategic relationships, they know this. So now they can tell you what path they accessed and what project they've wholly been studying and learning from. Does that make sense? So it's a combination of your Basecamp manager access within Basecamp as Basecamp manager, where they probably will not even access FreeToastHost. I have 10% of members that do that. Other than that, I do it all. And I would fill in that information.
Okay. And that's what I did when I was VPE. The information on FreeToastHost, I input that information. I would just ask them to send me, but not every VPE has the amount of time that I do. Some VPE works and they don't have time to go back and do the member's job for them so that they can get the proper credit. So I was just trying to see how to manage that to make it more impress more on them that, hey, we have people who do it religiously, but we have a few who, because they're working and coming in and go, just to make sure it gets easy, that it's done that way when the agenda is reconciled, that it's done.
Depend on it. Yes.
So they can't go back after, like you said, after you reconcile, that's it.
The other aspect that comes to mind is the same way that we differentiated in this webinar, which is the basic level. We have basic level VPE Basecamp managers and advanced level. Well, we also have basic level and advanced level members that understand FreeToastHost or don't. I'm not going to go to a first grader and say, I need you to do a vocabulary test for a college level course. I can't do it. And that's not to say anything is better or worse, but it's more, I just want to make sure that I'm appropriate with the given situation. I know there are certain members that I'm happy just to have them do a speech. So it doesn't take me long. It takes maybe about a minute or less for me to log that information in. Whatever the timing is. But here, the other aspect is, just like any investment, the time you put in the front end can pay off in the back end. In other words,
and that is the thing, when it's time to validate their completion of that level, that path, that all the projects were done, I would like to run that report, because I was like, oh, I don't have to, kind of maintain a spreadsheet or just say, okay, I'm tracking that person. Hey, you did all your speeches for level 4, you're starting level 5. Which one was this related to?
Yes.
And it's just going to make job easier for the VPE if they fill that out, or the VPE goes in and fill it out by collecting the project information and just add it.
One thing that I want to do for my club that I haven't done yet, but I have talked with another member who's a real go-getter, is to do some short videos on how to log in and do the very things that we want them to do. Like
that is my DTM project that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing short videos of instruction. And I was admiring your YouTube page. I'm like, I want to do that. Is what I'm planning to do.
Wonderful. But I hope it's clear. And I love the fact that you're doing this DTM project. Like, how can I expect somebody to know how to do all this in FreeToastHost, but I haven't taught them and there are no videos for them to do it?
But there are videos out there, it's just for them to go. I just think it would be a lot easier to have it on our channel.
Yes.
For them to go and access it. So that's why I chose that for my project. And
as
hopefully I'll do a good job at presenting the information.
And as a personal favor to me, Dahlia, if you have my email address, not required, but would you email me your needs in that regard? Because I would love to know what people need to know. I spend hours, days,
Okay.
weeks introspecting what people need before I put one of these together. So I thank you for that.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna pop my email in your chat right now, so just so you can save the chat.
You guys are really nice to your members. I literally chase after them and schedule Zoom time and walk them through a lot of stuff, and then schedule them again and continue to walk them through. And the consequence is they become confident on the computer. One.
Oh, I do their membership orientation. I go through that. I take them through level 1. Always
Yeah,
did.
I just
And then I go to ToastHost and show them, but they just, for whatever reason, they're always busy. And that one particular project, and it's not necessarily all the projects that happens with. It's just sometimes they may decide to fill in for a speech at the last minute.
Right.
And so all the information is not input on FreeToastHost, because they'll click through their project on Pathways. Right. That will get done. It's just FreeToastHost and being able to track that information with the resource that they've mentioned. Yeah. That's what I want to use, that information. That's awesome, because I did not know you could do that report there.
Yeah, and I actually collect that report and send it to the member if they fail to update that information. I said, here's your previous information, and just send the club report or a speech report from what they've done in the past, and tell them how valuable that is for their own research, because it will have the speech title and description and all that stuff.
So in my club, what our president does is tell all the members, and we agree upon it as a club, what the timeline will be. The VPE tries to get the meeting rules filled. What doesn't get filled at the end of the meeting, everybody sign up. Then the Toastmaster of that meeting must get the rules filled. Speech information must be entered by Tuesday so that the Sergeant at Arms can email out the agenda and the speech introductions and the evaluation form to those affected folks. Right. You know, agenda is everyone. Speech information is the Toastmaster of the meeting, and the evaluation is the evaluator. And Tuesday, by the way, is 2 days before our Thursday club meeting. Right. So it then falls on the techies of the club, which is Jim and I, to make sure the members are versed on how to use the drop-down menu on FreeToastHost to do the path and fill in that information. So we've gotten through all of the members now. It's the new member onboarding Jim and I still do, and then they get assigned a mentor to help them continue on. But you guys are really nice, because we went to a year ago, you must fill in your FreeToastHost. And so our club went through that growth period, that pain, and we're over it now. But I encourage you guys to do that.
I very much appreciate you all coming today. We are about 9 minutes over. Right. Your time is so respected. I really did spend, days, weeks putting this together. And you know what? I definitely see quality as being most important, more than quantity. Just by the nature of the role itself. There's only one per club, VPE, Base Camp Manager. And you guys represented that well. I'm so pleased that the Q&A just wants to butt further and further. That means that there's passion. We want to know about this information. I know we can help our clubs, and we do so every day together. Let's give ourselves a hand. And finally, one last hand, if we could, to our Zoom master. I really appreciate the help, David. He's done a lot of work behind the scenes, does a lot of work in Toastmasters. One more hand.
Thank you.
And I guess I need to give one more. Ellen, there's another one. My goodness, she gives so much time and energy to Toastmasters. One last hand for Ellen.
She is the master of Zoom masters.
Yes. Thank you for coming. And David, would you please stop the recording?